This is Chasyn Rance. He wrestles, he referees, he also trains and runs the Team Vision Dojo up in Orlando, Florida.
In any line of work, there are those who will come and go, and then there are those who the moment you see them, you know they aren't going to go away anytime soon. Unfortunately for the world of pro wrestling, Chasyn Rance was one of those who simply wouldn't leave no matter how many times he is asked to do so.
My name is Chasyn Rance, and I'm from North Miami Beach, Florida. I've had a few struggles with training students for professional wrestling. You may have seen me at WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, anywhere in the world of wrestling. You might have seen me on reality TV. You might have seen me on the news.
Shows the local man dubbed a bad boy on national TV could wind up with a reputation that's much, much worse.
A lot of people don't learn their lessons. Understand that I'm not the bad guy. I'm the good guy. Anybody that tries to hurt one of my students, my wrestling school, my friends, my family, or myself, you need to get better informed. You need to take care of yourself. You need to get yourself better. And understand that if you can't do that and you think that you're in the right when you're not, and I'm the one that's right, off.
Before anyone knew who Chasyn Rance was, he was already born in a position to have anything he wanted. I will let him explain where his family's wealth came from at the time.
My grandfather is Henry Gurman. I'm still trying to figure out the whole situation with what happened. I was born a millionaire, and by the time I was 5, the stock market had crashed. My grandfather had invested all these people's money into the stock market, and I believe he lied, saying it was an insurance thing, and he was making everybody lots and lots of money, but he was doing it in the stock market. And when the stock market crashed, and he tried putting all of his money into other stocks, and it kept going down, and he fled the country.
One of the first times the public would see Chasyn would be due to the news reporting on an incident where Chasyn would insinuate he was the victim of discrimination because he was asked to move his car.
Trouble in Seminole County. This, as what was supposed to be a celebration of the Jewish New Year, ended with 2 worshipers being arrested. It all began when deputies were called to a home on Foxcroft Drive after someone was complaining about the number of cars parked out front. Turns out a rabbi was holding a Rosh Hashanah service inside. The Jewish holiday began at sundown on Wednesday, but when 2 people started questioning the deputy, they got arrested.
Any other time, any other holiday, whether it's Christmas, New Year's in the Christian calendar, whether it's a UCF game, if that's going to happen, these roads are going to be packed. There's going to be no problems with people calling the cops. It's just because you have a few anti-Semitic people around here.
And you can see on the roadway with just 2 vehicles parked on each side of the road, it is very difficult for a passenger car to drive down here, let alone in a large emergency vehicle, whether it be an ambulance or a fire truck.
There were about 80 people at the home. They say they asked for just 10 more minutes to finish their prayers, but were denied. All new.
Another early Rance sighting is when he is filmed by Rob Feinstein having the last match in the Hart Dungeon, a claim that he loves to tout to this day.
I met Teddy Hart. I really looked up to the Hart family. He mentioned opportunities to go train in the Hart Dungeon. I ended up being the last student, even though some documentaries will say Teddy Hart, some documentaries will say TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd, but if you look it up, I'm the last one to go there, train there, come under the Hart banner. I'm the last one to have a shoot fight in the dungeon. You can look up my shoot fight.
Chasyn would also be a regular on Scott Hall's YouTube show during its run.
Welcome, last call with Scott Hall. We're here at my friend's house. We're checking out the old school
Sean cheated.
And look
Sean cheated.
Shut up, who the stars are. It looks like Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels. Here's Chasyn Rance. There's Ricky Young.
Oh, he cheated.
At the time, few had the resources and connections that Chasyn had this early on in their wrestling path, and this paid off with opportunities. Chasyn's wrestling career was doing quite well, and he was told that there were only 2 ways to get into the WWE. One of them required being over 6 feet tall, which he was miles from. The other was to come from reality television. This is the reason that Chason would throw his hat in the ring to be on a show called Tool Academy.
You guys think you're competing for Mr. Awesome, but your girlfriends are sending you to
the Tool Academy.
The Tool Academy premieres Sunday, January 11th at 10.
To any outside observer, Chason's wrestling career was going amazing. Seeing him pop up for TNA Wrestling and hearing his constant praise on the independent circuit, Chason seemed like he had made all of the right moves and was on the verge of his big break.
This is Chasyn Rance at CWA Coastal Wrestling Association. You may have seen me at WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, anywhere in the world of wrestling. You might have seen me on reality TV. You might have seen me on the news. Either way, check me out here.
He thought so highly of his prospects that he even began to get an ego before ever being signed to a major promotion.
2010, the reality show started airing in February 2000, on February 14th, where I was at backstage at TNA, talking with WWE, I think shortly thereafter, because I was just on the reality show and they called me for a match in May. Dixie Carter's walking by and I'm in the locker room. It's me, Sting, and Kurt Angle. Kurt's putting me over to Dixie, saying like, you got a hell of a heel right here. And all they want to talk about, like, oh, do you want to be with Orlando Jordan? I'm like, no, I'm a straight guy on a show that gets more viewers than Impact. So please, and Scott told them the same.
Never mind that he got himself kicked off of the first episode of that show, Chason was sure that he was deserving of a good spot now. And it is likely he would have been given that spot if he was only able to keep a family secret from ever seeing the light of day. There is one thing that has been omitted until this point in the video. The clips you are hearing of Chason are from a multiple-hour interview with the Duke Loves Wrasslin channel. Originally, the video had a different direction, but the plan was changed when listening to some of the things said in the interview. As said before, the interview is several hours long, but we will only be covering things surrounding his criminal charges.
I was charged with lewd and lascivious battery of a minor. And initially, the charge was rape because of the situation that I'm going to go into now. And it dates back to the beginning, kind of. Actually, around the time, so when I'm leaving for college, the girl that I got in trouble with is my grandmother's boyfriend's daughter. I met her when we were both minors, and it was always something where my grandmother and her father were, oh, you guys would be such a cute couple. And it was kind of like, okay, in the future, maybe. She was an aspiring actress in LA from England, and never thought much of it. Just like, okay.
For clarification, Chason is 10 years older than this girl. The latest he could have met her as a minor is when he was 18 and she was an 8-year-old.
Anyways, fast forward, she'd always come to visit her. My grandmother started dating this man, her father. He lied about a couple things with him, so I have a good relationship with him as well. Him and my grandmother actually just got married the other day. I'll get into that a little bit more. Came up to college, continued wrestling. My parents made me quit wrestling right around that time as well, because I got a really bad concussion that gave me temporary amnesia. My girlfriend and I had broken up right before the incident, and then people at school had to tell me that we broke up.
I will admit I did not expect temporary amnesia to show up in this story, and I'm sure it's just a coincidence that it took place around this time and has absolutely nothing to do with a possible legal defense.
California, wrestling for PWG. The girl, she invited me to stay with her because my grandmother and her father would have us talk on the phone or AOL Instant Messenger. Oh, talk to her, please talk to her. She's an actress. She's trying to do better. She'd like to talk. She likes you. And yes, in the future, it'd be cute for you guys. And I said, okay. And we actually had a discussion at one point that maybe when I'm 35 and she's 25 and we're established in our careers, that maybe it could be something. And this was something that was spoken about with my grandmother and her father. And my mom knew the situation and my dad knew the situation, and we didn't really think too much of it. But she would come to visit when she was 14 and I'm 24. My grandmother, the father, her, and she had an older sister as well. The older sister and I, we were friendly. They tried to set us up too when I was wrestling in North Carolina. She was there and she was a fashionista, but we didn't really click. She was a very nice girl, but the other one, she just was always interested, and I thought her acting was really good. She was, when she was 14, like I mentioned, when they were staying here, she tried getting a little too close to me on a couch when we were watching some horror movie, and I just had to move away. And eventually I just told the family, I said, hey, I'm going upstairs, as they were getting ready, and I didn't want to be left alone with her. And I'm not trying to blame her or anything. And I don't try to victim blame or anything like that.
Remember that he says this as he continues. If there is one thing Chason would never want to do, it's blame the girl for what happened. That is just something he would never do, except for every time he does it in this interview.
She was a very nice girl, and I don't know if it was then or shortly after that, but she randomly messaged me online and let me know she lost her virginity. And I said, whoa. I know we talk about it, but I don't want to get in trouble the way I did, and I did get in trouble, and I didn't want that. And looking back, it's what was I thinking? Eventually, and that wasn't when she was 14. A year later, my high school sweetheart was back in my life. We're best friends, but we're not dating each other. I'm kind of a wreck because I have her around me. And the girl I got in trouble with, I see her once a year when she visits or twice a year when she visits, and she writes me online, and I try not to keep it too much, but if I'm on the phone with my grandmother or with her father and she's around or something, we'll talk. She's even shown up to parties for my stepsister when she thought I was going to be there, and wears some of the most provocative stuff, and made my sister cry because she thought I was going to be there, and and it's a whole thing. So fast forward 2 months, and we're in the night of question of what happened, the thing that got me in trouble. Danielle was supposed to come stay upstairs with me, but she said she wanted a separation period. She stayed in the downstairs room. So, jumping around again. We're getting ready to leave the South Florida show. We got 2 carloads, and the girl's there. She's 15 at the time. She looks like she's in her 20s. We have conversations, we talk. There's some family events that we're at. Nothing has ever happened with us physically. She's with one of her girlfriends that's also 15. They look older, they act older. If I hadn't mentioned before, she was in college right now. I think it was at UCLA. Really smart. She skipped through high school so quick. She was an actress that was doing really well in LA. Eventually on this trip that happened, she did a monologue for me, and she could have been a huge star. And just stuff with the mom, but she asks her dad if the 2 of them can come up to Orlando with us. And again, we have 2 carloads, guys, girls. And we said, we worked it out to where they could come and they could take a train back a couple days later. Just they're in town from California for a little over a week. And sometimes, I think the next year we went to a theme park and stuff. But, what's my grandmother and her father? Her father, I found out through this whole thing, actually is a sex offender as well. He was a neurologist that allegedly touched patients, but he says it's not true. I don't know. I wasn't there. He's also 20 years older than her mother. All this stuff I found out after my legal situation.
In case it wasn't clear, the guy who is encouraging him to date the young girl is on the registry as well.
We figure out a plan for them to come up, and Danielle, my high school sweetheart, is supposed to stay in the bedroom with me. And the two girls are supposed to stay in the bedroom downstairs. To the party that wasn't supposed to happen, Kirby starts saying, we're going to party. It's like, no, we're supposed to have the party tomorrow night after the I Believe in Wrestling event. It's late. Because we got back, I don't know if it was like 1, 2, 3. Because jump ahead, I know the incident happened at 7 in the morning. Things had been going rough with Danielle and I didn't know what was going on, but we weren't being intimate in that time. Like, she was cheating on me, and so I'd gone back to sleep. Earlier before that match, I slept with Amanda, and then at the party, Danielle's supposed to stay in my bedroom, the two girls in the downstairs. We're hanging out by the hot tub. Amanda's at the party. There's a bunch of people here, some famous wrestlers. I think Larry had already gone to sleep at this time. Maybe, I don't know if he had been asleep. No, I don't know yet. By the time things got a little crazier, he went to sleep. Usually I even go to sleep early on my parties because I'll have students that'll be here to clean up. So like, even in the future when it'd be me and my other, when things were even bigger and you can see online these 4th of July parties and stuff like that where it says WWE, Impact, New Japan, Ring of Honor, stars, hang out with whatever. I was charged with lewd and lascivious battery. I had a relationship with a girl who was near 16 when I was 25, and it was very wrong and bad, and future attempts, I turned them down, and I'll get more into that. We're in the hot tub. I'm upset. I messed up. I'm upset emotionally, and I've been drinking. And I've been smoking. I don't do anything else. I've taken pain pills before when I've got that really bad concussion. And if I didn't mention this, I did, where Danielle came to the hospital and told me we were still together. We broke up. Aside from the wrestling, her cheating. The girl and I, we kissed in the hot tub in front of everybody. I was drunk. She did not drink and she did not smoke. Yes, she took a little sip of one of the shot glasses and she didn't like it. And it wasn't offered by me. Kirby did. And I said, you don't need to. And if you don't drink, she says she drinks. And I know of like family and other people that tell me about these things. I'm like, look, like drinking, if you drink too much in excess, and especially young, there's so much you could do to your liver, so don't. And she took a sip. I said, no, don't worry about drinking. And Danielle offered her. She's like, I don't want to. No, I don't know. I think she took a little bit of a hit, but like just nothing. She was sober. We kissed in the pool and Amanda was there and she's like, what the fuck? I was just drunk, and she wanted to kiss. She wanted things, and she's very attractive. She looks like she's in her 20s. She's very smart, but I always had the block like, no, that's illegal. And it was always kind of like, the dad saying, hey, go up, stay with Chason, whatever. We kissed. Danielle, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, hey, like, thank you, stop. Amanda cried and she left.
For those who were having a hard time keeping up, Amanda was the one he had cheated on his girlfriend with a few hours before this.
Danielle, can you take the girls and like put them in the downstairs room? We should all be getting to bed. Next thing I know, Danielle and Kirby are in the downstairs room and they're talking, and the other 15-year-old girl is like making out with one of the other wrestlers. I think it was one of the other ones that came down from North Carolina. I don't think there's anything too much, and I'm just, whatever. I was in another state. I go to my room, and it's like 7 in the morning, I think. This is what I remember. Again, this is 13 years ago, and I go to the bedroom, and I'm in there, and she cuddles up to me, and we cuddle, and I'm just a wreck. I don't know what's going on. And this girl, she's very beautiful. She's smart. And we start kissing. One thing leads to another. We're touching. And she's the one that says, get a condom. And I got a condom. We had sex. It wasn't her first time. It wasn't her second time. And after me, it wasn't her last time before all the legal stuff happened. We showered together after we had sex, and one thing led to another. And we were touching, and it's all right, it happened. I'm still like, I don't know if I shouldn't be drunk, but like sleep deprived or something, or just not thinking, or just the woman that I wanted to marry, I don't know what's going on. She's downstairs, something's fishy, and I'm being stupid. And a girl that loves me, cares for me, even though she's so young, she's 15, 16. She acts so smart. She's also gifted. She's in college. When all the legal stuff went down, before the legal stuff happened, I told the dad about what happened. In between me knowing, I'll get to that. In the shower, she says, "Do you have another condom?" I don't think she used that words, but I just remember us having sex in the shower, using a condom. I don't remember. Because I know I have sex with other girls, and there was another girl with and these were all girls of age. Some with condoms, some without condoms. It would just depend on the situation. And I get tested, and I'm clean, and I know who I'm dating. I know we had sex twice that night. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to assume it was in the shower and also with a condom. In the morning, how was the door locked if Danielle came in? Because we're laying in bed in the morning, and I know we were cuddling, and I don't know if we moved away from each other when Danielle came in or what. Danielle just came in, and she looked, and she's like, "Oh." And she walked out, and I said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Like, we shouldn't have done this. We were supposed to wait until you were at least 18 if we did this." And we discussed when we could have a real relationship. That night when we had the actual party, or that event, I had Kat was in the crowd. Amanda was in the crowd. Kat came back because I'd been, hanging out with her, and she lived in Ocala. She came there, and I don't think Danielle was in the crowd. I think she was. No, yeah, she was in the crowd. The girl, Allie, was in the crowd, and I might have even had another. I don't know. They all came to the parties. Everybody knew each other. That night at the party, I wouldn't hook up with Allie, and I told her. Amanda and Kat were fighting over me. Kat tried getting Amanda to have a threesome, and Amanda wasn't having it. And just because Amanda didn't like Kat, I think. Anyways, that's other stuff. I hooked up with Kat that night.
Just to make sure everyone is keeping up, he has now admitted to cheating on his girlfriend with 2 women on the same day before the incident with the minor even happened that morning. Having all of these women around him that night, he overlooked them all for this one girl.
We slept together. Allie and her friends stayed. I told the other wrestler, I said, "Hey, not with the other one." I don't know, her name's Jasmine. And I believe that was Jasmine. There was another friend that had been around at times, but all the friends, I don't believe they're friends with Allie anymore, because it was like, how could you do this to Chason? But again, the mother and the stepfather, and not the stepfather, I already mentioned him. We hung out at the party, and did all that. Said, "You can't do that." The girl stayed down, the 15-year-old stayed downstairs on the couch. Danielle stayed in the room with Kirby. No, not Kirby, she stayed by herself. Kirby, I don't know where everybody was at. The next morning, everybody was leaving. My students cleaned my house. The 2 younger girls are there. I think we hung out for the day, and I don't know what we did. And I had other people there too, and then I took them to the train station. That was it.
I must reiterate that I do not personally believe his wording of events. However, even if you give him his telling of the story thus far, he looks absolutely awful. He has blamed the girl, his ex, his family, and anyone else within a 2-mile radius of having a hand in his actions that night. Unfortunately, this is not the last instance of this girl being taken advantage of in Chason's version of events.
Next year, my grandmother said they were coming to visit Allie, her older sister, and one of the friends. I don't know if it was the same friend or the other one. They invited me to stay at the Cocoa Beach Hotel with all of them. I'm like, oh, no, I got stuff. Eventually, I had to go over there. The next day was our cousin Dylan's birthday, who was young at the time. I don't know if he was 9 or something. One of my cousins that I still keep in, cousin through family. His parents, his mother was adopted when she was young. I have a lot of family and friends and stuff, and we do lots of charity. And they were not charity, just lots of helping people adopted, someone that had problems, and then even adopted her son. My grandparents' best friends who had passed away. Anyways, I try to be there for him because he doesn't really have that. I mean, he's got his uncle that takes care of him, but here nor there. But that was his birthday. I get to the hotel. I don't know if it's like 12:30 or 1, maybe 12:30, and I figure, okay, I don't want the situation to happen again. I figured the two 16-year-olds and me, 26, 16-year-olds will stay in their bed, and I'll stay in the bed with the older one who's like in between our age, and nothing will happen. The older sister and the friend stayed in one bed, and Allie got into bed with me, and things started to happen, and I stopped her. I went to the bathroom. I took care of myself, and I said, we can't do that. I'm sorry. The next day, we went to the party. We walked out on the beach. Some stuff happened, and we stopped. And then when we back at my grandmother's house, my grandmother asked me to come, and then sent me to go pick up like a red box. We're in 2009, by the way. 26, she's 16. She joked about going to the condom section. I'm like, no, let's get a red box and get out of here. And I'm being playful with it because I do care about the girl. I do love the girl. We had a relationship where we cared about each other. We cared about each other's personal things, what was going on when she had boyfriends and stuff like that. Like, it's like, okay, just make sure he's treating you well. And I hope your career is going well, and make sure you do this stuff. And I was going to mention this when she was here hanging out, she did a monologue for me. And I'm like, wow, this girl could be a star. She had a crazy mother. The cop told me that as well. We get a movie. We go back to the house. We're all hanging out on like a couch, on a fold-out couch. And eventually it's just me, her, the older sister. I don't know where her friend was. We're watching, and all of a sudden she starts trying to go down on me. And I'm like, I run to the bathroom. I take care of myself. And I say, stop. We can't do that. I think I left. I think I'd left right then.
3 separate times, he admits to these actions with a minor, and 3 separate times he blames them and scolds them, only to have to repeat these actions a few hours later. However, victim blaming is something that Chasyn does not do, so let's carry on.
I know we went to a water park. We were in South Florida at the time, so the party was in Cocoa Beach. I think maybe the next day we went to a water park in West Palm Beach. We held hands like a little bit, like we'd go on a ride together, because it's like, we can't do this. So we went down on a tube together or something. I'd hold her hand and tell her I care about her, and she'd talk about it, and I'm just like, we can't. And I don't know if that's mind manipulation or things like that. I'm not trying to. And whatever I did, I've told her like, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to. And it didn't seem like it really hurt anything, because like I said, she had relationships after me, and plenty, and I know about them. And then even in the future, like she doesn't really have a relationship with her father now, but she'd ask about me, and I'm like, can you do anything to fix this? Do you want to say anything? Like, what can we do?
I'm not sure, but what he just admitted to could possibly be considered tampering with the witness. In most situations, you aren't allowed to try to coerce someone into dropping charges against you. This could be different in this case, but it would be very unusual. This would not be the only form of coercion this girl would have to deal with. Keep in mind that during this entire time, well over a year after the first admitted incident, no one had reported him. not his ex nor the other people at the party. He certainly had to believe he'd got away with it, as this would be around the time he began his attempts to get on reality TV and bigger wrestling events. One thing that has made people curious about Chason and his run on the reality show was that if he wanted to impress and make the most of it, why did he get himself thrown off on the first episode? There is a very easy to see reason why Chason would get himself thrown off, but he does not come out directly and tell you what that reason is.
Around this time, this is end of 2009 until the beginning of 2010. At that time, end of 2009, I was more tied in with Scott Hall. Larry had already been here. I found my way to get closer to Scott and get him involved in my wrestling stuff and help get him back in shape and ready for TNA. And I was going to TNA. I had extra work coming up for... I just got off the reality show VH1 where I went with one of my girlfriends. It was more or less trying to get into WWE, and the protocol in like 2009 to get in WWE was either be 6'2", at least 6'2", 275 pounds, or 6'4", whatever it was, or be on a reality TV show. So I looked up reality TV shows and found one to have. I'm like, who could take me on this? And one of my girlfriends, that Amanda, she loved the show too, as did some others. So I'm like, sign me up for this.
Amanda, the exact same one from the party before, would apparently continue seeing Chason after what she saw him doing with the young girl that night in the hot tub and be his girlfriend on the reality show.
I'm running a wrestling school. I'm on top of the world. WWE's coming up on the VH1 reality show. It's been so many years. So filmed in 2009, 2010. And honestly, when we were watching the show, I was really hoping that my girl didn't ask me, or that Amanda didn't ask me about Allie, because there's a lie detector test in there and I didn't want to talk about it. She didn't know about it. She assumed, but it was just something I didn't want to talk about, and something I felt like, that shouldn't have happened. I turned down future advances, but it happened. But I didn't want to talk about that on national TV. So there was a little bit of a stress going in there. Plus, going on these reality shows, they have a thing called a soft script. So they have an idea where they're going. Every 300 minutes they film it equals 1 minute of actual TV time. Seeing the finished product, there were voiceovers, there was this, the whole thing's crazy. And in the span of like 4 seconds, I'm wearing 5 different outfits. That might be a bit much. Maybe there's 3 different outfits, but it's like I'm laying on a bed wearing pants, standing up now wearing shorts with the same shirt. They didn't notice that I just switched pants and this, and then I was wearing a totally different outfit. Reality show, they edited it to make it all fancy. I quit the show because I had a staph infection. I just quit the show. They weren't paying me any money. And so I just say, hey, look, like, this is ridiculous. You're not paying us anything. Also, it was right before the second season of Jersey Shore, to where they all got paid, and it was the same production. I was trying to get all the tools around, like, hey, don't sign any more contracts. Let's get paid for this thing. And they didn't care. So I quit the show shortly after that, and then they just wrote me off.
So, according to Chason, he quit the show because he had a staph infection. But Chason also quit because they weren't getting paid like the Jersey Shore cast. Far be it from me to call Chason dishonest, but I do have my own theory as to why Chason quit. The moment Chason saw a lie detector in the short script and remembered that Amanda knew what she knew, he wasn't willing to risk her asking him about anything to do with the incident years before. Even though Chason had just walked off a show on the first episode, he wasn't going to let that stop him from milking that for all it was worth.
I'm on reality shows. I'm backstage at TNA every show. They asked me to be part of the show, and Scott told them if they don't have a main event role for me, don't even think about it. Plus, my reality show was getting better ratings than TNA. Like I said, WWE was now calling because of the reality show.
Years had passed now, and it was the day of the party after the final episode of the reality show. The entire cast would be brought in for a media event and one last taste of publicity. Most of the cast probably remember this day fondly, but one member of the cast will never forget this day for other reasons.
So we have the party, we get to Amanda's house, and I wake up in the morning to a phone call, and I'm not home. Amanda lives down the road from me. And I get a phone call, and it's Allie, and she says, I'm telling my dad. And I'm just waking up, not sure what's going on. And I'm like, huh? What? I'm telling my... Anyways, I told Amanda, I'm like, hey, I got to get out of here. I remember walking outside and talking on the phone. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm going to tell my dad what happened and stuff. So I don't know what's going on. I know that she's talking. I'm like, why would you do that? Because at the time, she was coming to Orlando with her mom and stepdad, and Phil, her father, my grandmother's boyfriend, was coming up to Orlando. And we were all supposed to, the five of us, go out and meet, or not meet, but go and eat. I have never met the mother. I never met the stepdad at this time. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Because while like I dated these other girls, and the first fiance had been like out of the picture, and I was just kind of like, whatever, all right, I'm freaking, this is how I do my stuff. I'm traveling all the time and doing this. The girls that I date know that I'm promiscuous, but this is the girl that we've talked about a future. She's very bright. She's a beautiful girl. She's mature, so we thought. And all right, I'm going to go meet my future mother-in-law. That was the mindset I had going into it, honestly.
Chason's optimism about his situation was not indicative of his reality at the moment. In what would come as a surprise to only Chasyn, he was not in fact going to meet his future mother-in-law, but was instead being confronted with his actions by the one he victimized.
So that's what I thought was going on, but she calls me, tells me this stuff, like I'm telling my dad, and I'm like, what? We ended up being on the phone for about like 20 minutes or so. She hung up a couple times, getting upset, crying, and then I tried calling back, and she wouldn't answer, and she would only call me. We're going back and forth about the thing, and I'm like, what are you talking about? She's saying something like, oh, you did this. I turned you down that time. No, that didn't happen. I have no idea I'm being recorded by the cops. I get home, and I told M, St. Laurent, I said, I think I might have been recorded. He's like, what? I'm like, I was on the phone with Allie. He's like, oh, well, just don't talk about it anymore. And I'm upstairs, and there's a knock on the door. And I forget if it was Larry or M, but he's like, Chasyn, there are police here. I'm like, and my heart sunk when the knock was on the door. I'm like, man, man, imagine like the night before, it's like you have the opportunity to wrestle for any wrestling company potentially. Like I'd have to obviously earn my stripes more if I got into WWE, if I didn't sign that contract with WWP or that thing fell apart and I made it to WWE. Like, it's just an opportunity and I still have to prove myself. So more hard work would come into play then, or if I went to TNA or whatever the situation with Ring of Honor, or I went overseas. But to the next day, to cops showing up, to realizing like my life might never be the same again and it might be over. The cop says to me, he says, hi, did you have a conversation with Al? And I said yes. And the officer said, it was two of them. He said, would you like to sit down on the couch and tell us the story, or would you like to talk to your lawyer? And I was just so happy. I'm like, oh, yes, lawyer, please. Thank you. Yes, I'd like to talk to my lawyer. And the cop pulls out this hidden recording thing, hits stop. And he says, hey, I hope you have a really good lawyer, because this girl's mother is crazy and she's only out for money.
This is one of Chasyn's claims that he keeps leaning on in the interview. He constantly implies that many in law enforcement would treat him differently than other criminals because they knew he was such a great guy, or his victim is simply seeking a payday.
I said, all right, thank you. And they're like, at some point, there's going to be a warrant for your arrest. Would you like us to just come pick you up, or would you like us to call you? I said, please call me. They're like, okay. And I was trying to get the cops out of there as quick as possible because Phil, the dad, was coming over to meet up with me for us to go to lunch with the rest of the family. So within 5 minutes, Phil shows up. I don't know if I called my mom yet. So Phil comes over and I said, hey, Phil, he's like, oh, hey, Ray. I'm like, come inside. We need to talk. And he's like, okay, what's up? I'm like, have a seat. And then I sit him down on the couch. I said, hey, do you remember 2 years ago when you sent Allie up here with her friend? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, during that trip, your daughter and I, we had sex. And he said, okay. And like, didn't seem like, okay, sounds fine. And again, like, how old are they now? They're born in the 30s. So mid 80s right now, or 80. Yeah. They're in their mid 80s. The age gap, I guess, to them probably didn't seem as big of a deal. Plus, they knew, Allie. I think he knew Allie was like how she was. But then also, I'll get more into this. How through this case, I found out more about the dad, Phil.
So, his new step grandfather, the victim's father, and the other person on the registry in this story saw nothing wrong with the incident. As insane as this was to hear, his story still had one more turn to take that would really put into scope how bad this situation was, even if you believe every word he says.
He just kind of said, okay, you and my daughter, you guys got started a little early. I said, well, this is what's going on now. And I told him about the recording and the cops. He's like, what? And he starts trying to call his ex-wife, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Her mother found Allie's diary months before or something that talked about us having a relationship. And the mother wasn't getting money from the father, so she thought she could come after me. They had Allie in therapy. That's right. Her stepfather was going through financial problems. Like at one point they were doing really well on money. And I think the stepdad was getting tired of being the one to take care of everything. Like the mother wasn't doing anything. So they came up with a plan to extort me for $1 million. Well, it can't be consensual since she's not of age. It's not like I did anything to force her to have intercourse with me by any means. So I'm like, there's still a crime that's been committed, and on paper, this is what the serving is. So I ended up on a really bad state prosecutor's desk where she wouldn't even look at me in court, and my lawyer was just trying to get the sex offender for life taken off, but he was able to he even said like that I do time to make sure I didn't have the life sentence. But in Florida, it's the worst state that you can get in trouble for something like this or I don't know, just the worst place in the world, maybe. I don't know. So through this, I spoke to my mom while this was going on. I didn't tell my dad. I was so terrified of my father for doing something stupid like this, even though he knows, because my family weren't like, hey, she's always kind of throwing herself.
Chason caught himself as he victim blamed again.
And so Sunday, turned myself in. Monday, got out. By Tuesday or Wednesday, I was all over the news. I was in the paper. I was on TV.
And reality show star is accused tonight of having sex with a minor.
Chasyn Rance is accused of lewd and lascivious battery on that girl.
And the girl says she had sex with the reality show star several times at his Orlando home when she was just 15 years old.
West 2's Craig Lucy shows the local man dubbed a bad boy on national TV could wind up with a reputation that's much, much worse.
Orlando wrestler Chasyn Rance paints himself as a ladies' man. He likes to kiss his groupies before showing off his skills in the ring. Rance even went on the reality show Tool Academy to become a better boyfriend. His new reality, being labeled a sex offender. In his arrest affidavit, investigators say a 15-year-old girl was visiting from California, hanging out at his Orlando home 2 years ago. She wrote in her diary that they smoked marijuana, drank alcohol, and had sex. Her mother came across the diary and called police. We stopped by his house. No one answered the door.
I'm really in shock,
His neighbor, a father, is very concerned Rance bonded out of jail after being arrested for lewd and lascivious battery on a child.
He seems like a nice guy, but I guess, you never know.
We do know Chasyn's run on reality TV was a short one. VH1's website says Chasyn was to be schooled in proper behavior, focusing on trust, romance, and family values.
My girlfriend set me up. But you know what? I don't think I need the help that they need.
He quit the show in the first episode.
So I was just laying low all the time, and people would ask me, like, why aren't you making an apology? Why aren't you making public apologies and stuff? I'm like, I'm going through the court systems. Like, please, like, I don't need to do this stuff. And later I have made apologies, but I've gone through the whole system. I talked to her, and even on the voice recording, I tell Allie, I'm just like, if I did anything to hurt you, which I don't feel I did, I'm sorry. I just didn't know where she was coming on with the whole thing, but her mom had been lying to her about all this stuff, so she just got in her head. So I had all that going on. It was for like a year almost before we got to court. And between that time, I was just hoping it was going to get dropped. And then there was even discussion because, we talked about like if she was my wife, if this would be a situation thing to where it's like, do Allie and I have to get married for this? And it wasn't something that was off the table, but the relationship between Allie, her father, and the mother had been so just destroyed, between her not knowing who to trust, between her mom lying to her and the stepdad. The marriage option, I just said I'd marry Allie. I'd say we got along real well, and if that's what it would take, And
the same family that had groomed this victim were now trying to convince her to marry Chasyn to spare him any repercussions for his actions. When this interview began, I did not have a high opinion of Chasyn and expected him to not raise it from that level, but what I didn't expect was that instead of using a technique like we have seen in previous disastrous interviews, he would instead make his actions sound so much worse than they did on paper, while implicating everyone around him. Chasyn would be convicted and placed on the registry, but somehow still believed he could be featured on national television.
I went to TNA. I signed up for one of their gut checks to let them know, hey, I'm back, and my contract with WWP had been suspended, and the whole thing kind of fell through where some of the guys were able to rekindle their relationship with TNA, or some went to WWE. Anyways, I was in the gut check. They put a poll out online that said, hey, from the gut checks that have happened, who would you like to see? And there's over 100 people on this list. And I call Lindsay. I found the list early. I'm decent at computers and stuff, so I actually found the list and the polls prior to them getting out. So I was actually able to take a lead and got it out there to my people. And then it started getting out there to the rest of the world that this poll was out there. And I was in the top 3 the whole time out of the hundreds of people that people wanted to see in TNA. And I'm pretty sure I was leading my section, because I think there was maybe 12, 13, or 14 different polls, and I was like number 1 in mine. I called Lindsay Dorado and I said, hey, Lindsay, or called him by his real name, Jose. I said, hey, there's this poll out there, but it's got your real name on it. He's like, what? And he contacted TNA to get that down. And then TNA was they didn't do the poll properly, because at that point, some people had already been signed to WWE. Someone else passed away. Somebody else was dealing with a legal matter. And then there was my legal matter, to where they got complaints, and I get an email from TNA. It was a generic info@tnawrestling.com. Hey, because of past indiscretions, we're going to have to take you off this list. And I'm like, and I wanted to write back. I'm like, is this Bob Ryder? Is this who's talking to me? You sound this so generic. You know me.
And with that, Chasyn's doors to wrestle for major promotions had been shut. However, he did find a way to keep a spot in wrestling. In a move that would make Pat Patterson, Mel Phillips, and Terry Garvin proud, Chasyn would begin his own ring crew business. This would give him the smallest amount of power by being able to say who can and can't play with his toys, and given how wrestling tends to overlook anything for sake of a good price on a ring rental, Chasyn has managed to carve out a rather successful business.
I did my plea. I was charged 2 years house arrest, 7 years probation. After that, lifetime sex offender. I'm allowed to be around while I'm on probation. While I was on probation, I don't think I was allowed to be around kids alone. I think that was the situation. So I just never put myself in that situation. Not that I really needed to be. My girl and I, we are in Memphis, and I get a phone call, and it's Kevin Nash. And he's like, "Hey, Chase, want to go to Aruba?" I said, "Do I?" He's like, can we bring you to Aruba? Can we use your ring? And how is Cody Hall doing? Because I was training Scott Hall's son. Was I training Tim yet? I think I was training Tim already, but he was newer at the time. Yeah. Tim hadn't started yet, I don't think. I said, sure, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we can get the ring. He's like, can I pay you a lot of money? I said, you can pay me as much money as you want. So that was awesome. So when I'm at the wrestling school, like a police officer would show up or something and people would freak out. I'm like, don't freak out. They're probably not here to see me because I'm doing all the processes. I'm doing all the stuff. I did something wrong. Let me go through the process. And aside from that, my mind's still here. My body's still here. I'm still running wrestling promotions. I'm still tied into all these places. I was asked so the first event that I had one at Salvation Army post the news online and on TV. And the first promotion said, hey, like, they're advertising the building that we're running at, the Salvation Army. They don't want this bad press. They don't want people coming there and picketing. So we can't have you there right now. Can you still provide us the ring? And I'm like, yeah, I can still provide you the ring and still provide you the wrestlers and everything. Just, send me the money ahead of time. I had somebody else driving the ring truck at that point. Sometimes I drive the ring truck. Sometimes I have other people who do it. So, and then I slowly but surely, every promotion, like, we're getting crap because people that don't know the story or they just want to come at me.
But this business would lead to another controversy for Chasyn, as during one of Kenny Omega's treads into booking, he would use one of Chasyn's rings. After finding out that Chasyn's ring crew were all wrestlers, they were given a dark match before the event started for doing a good job. This situation would quickly gain traction on social media as wrestling fans thrust Chasyn's past into the spotlight once again, forcing Omega to issue a statement and publicly distance himself from the disgraced registered offender. Chasyn would have another business that he used to stay relevant, and it was a wrestling school. The school runs shows like most wrestling schools, but they also accept minors as students. Another controversy would come when it was discovered that Chasyn had booked himself to win the tag team championships with a 16-year-old girl at his wrestling promotion. Chasyn is one of the few people in these videos who has dedicated trolls who send him meat lovers pizzas and trans call girls whom he threatens upon arrival. His wrestling run is all but complete now, but he is still teaching minors at wrestling schools to this day. He also actively searches out videos about himself and posts gems like this in response to videos exposing his past actions.
Hey everyone, Chasyn Rance here, one half of the Florida Tag Team Champions and head trainer at Team Vision Dojo. And yes, the rumors are true. We have a brand new location opening up next month that's twice the size of here, just up the road on Edgewater Drive in Lockhart, Florida. And just like we're in Azalea Park right now, it's all Orlando. And this Saturday we'll be back here where I'm taking on Violent A again. Yes, I beat him last time, but I don't think he learned his lesson. A lot of people don't learn their lessons. Understand that I'm not the bad guy, I'm the good guy. Anybody that tries to hurt one of my students, my wrestling school, my friends, my family, or myself, you need to get better informed. You need to take care of yourself. You need to get yourself better. And understand that if you can't do that and you think that you're in the right when you're not, and I'm the one that's right, off.
We can only hope Chasyn doesn't feel that way about this video, as it's basically just his telling of the story. But even if it does, I'm not worried. He's only a minor threat.